Thank you very much for being here. I imagine that you are tired after 4 days here in Rio. Has been a wonderful event, so I want to congratulate to the organizers. They have done really, really well. This is out of expectations, so fantastic. Also, I want to thank our sponsors, Shell, Wärtsilä, Total, Chevron, EVP, and the OPEC Fund for International Development that are key players in the success of these events. Without their support, many of the issues that you enjoyed during the conference will not be available. Okay, so I did something a little bit at what you did.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Well, we are this year celebrating 40 years since the first event of the International Association for Energy Economics took place. Thank you very much. So where we were in 1977, many of you, the youngest one, were not born. Was the time when was the time when Apple Computer Inc. was founded. The same year, that was early January. Later in the year came out the first Apple II computer. That was a great change for the people that remember at that time. Later on, we have a big news coming from New York, the big blackout where New York was left for about 25 hours without electricity. So the newspapers called 24 hours of terror. The birth rate 9 months later was much higher. In France took place the last execution of with the guillotine. That was good news. We suffered the death of Elvis Presley, a great singer. Took place the first flight of a Concorde between London and New York. And here in Brazil, you should be proud, but that was the year when Pelé said goodbye to his professional career and retires after playing in 6, I think, World Cups. That is a big record, very success. So that was what's going on in the world. And by the end of the year, in December, took place the ASA meeting, the ALAEE Social Science National Convention that took place in New York. If you go to the program, you will find a line, very hidden, that says Association of Energy Economics Organizational Meeting. Do you saw that, David? Huh? So that was the first seed that was put to the creation of the International Association for Energy Economics. And after that came all this wonderful history that was told us by Gurkan, that I want to reflect in what are our publications. We have the IAEE Energy Forum that you get 4 times a year. The Energy Forum started in 1978. The first number of the Energy Forum came out in 1978 and was called the IAEE Newsletter. So those guys that founded this association were very active, very fast. They want to have a newsletter. You have to remember that they organized this in December 1977. In 1978, they were already writing this IAEE newsletter. That later on, in 2006, I think, it changed the name to IAEE energy forum under the president of Carlo Andrea Bollino. Our first journal, the Energy Journal, this is the front page of the first issue of the Energy Journal that came out, I think, in 1978, or no, 1982, right? Yeah, 1982, something like that, yes. And later on, we have in 2012, our second journal, Economic of Energy and Environmental Policy. So the association today has two great journals that publish research, frontline research, one in hard issues of energy economics, the other looking more into the energy economics and the environment. And we invite you, we invite the students, the professionals, the researchers to send their papers to our journals. We like to receive journal papers to be submitted, to be analyzed, and to see if you can publish there. So you are invited to send papers for publication in our journal. So that was what's going on. But what were the key energy events that were taking place when the International Association for Energy Economy was born? Well, we have already in the mind what was the Suez Canal crisis, when the Egyptian president, Nasser, nationalized the canal, and he blocked the canal, and that implied that about 10% of the oil production in the world went out of the market. So there was a first, we can say, oil crisis about a decade and a half before, 2 decades before the creation of the association. Then we have, as was mentioned by Jim, the 1973-74 embargo, where the countries, the Arab countries, put an embargo to oil. You see here the time, at that time, the Time magazine published to King Faisal as the man of the year. And later on, immediately after the creation of the association, you see the Iranian crisis, where that got production to Western countries. So it was a very busy time in terms of what's going on in the energy market, and the association was born just in the middle of this situation. If you look the program of the 1977 ALAEE Social Science Association in New York in December, and also some few years before and after, you will see a lot of papers on energy issues. And if maybe you go 10 years before, none. Okay, so it was a very hot topic at that time, and still is a very hot topic. Okay, so in terms of this event, well, certainly we have a huge increase with during the first oil crisis, the second oil crisis, that created a large scarcity of oil in the market. And what are the changes? Okay, so what are the changes that have taken place between 1977 and today? What has happened in the world? Well, I would say that we have seen a huge increase in population for about 4 billion. Today we are in 7.4 billion people. 7.4 billion people, so population has almost doubled since the association was created, with an increase in the percentage of population that's coming from Asia. So we are more in this world. Also, we have seen a huge increase in the economy. The economy has multiplied. The size of the world economy has multiplied almost by 3. And what is very interesting is the change in the who are the largest economies. If we go back to 1977, United States, Japan, Germany, France, Italy, United Kingdom were the largest economy, and that has changed. And today we have that the US is still the largest economy, but immediately we have China in the second place, growing very fast, competing with the US to become the largest economy in the world. Then we have Japan, Germany, France, United Kingdom, India appears here. So we have seen big changes in terms of the size of the different economies, where large developing countries are becoming bigger in terms of the economic size in the world. And that has implied that energy consumption has increased a lot. If we look from 1977 up to today, energy consumption has increased by 210% about. And that has led us to a situation where we have seen big changes in the amount of energy, but also changes in the energy matrix and changes in who is using that energy. So when took place this oil crisis back in the 70s, about 50% of the energy that was used came from oil, 18% from natural gas, 27% from coal, and renewables, thinking hydro at that time, and nuclear, only accounted for about 7.5%. So you can imagine the shock in the world economy of the oil crisis in the early and in the late 70s. Today, we are in a world with a little bit more diversified energy matrix, a little bit more, where oil today accounts for about 32%, natural gas 24%, coal 28%, but still, if you look at this energy mix, we have that about 87%, 86% of primary energy comes from fossil fuels. In terms of consumption, as I already mentioned, well, we have seen also big changes in energy consumption. I will skip many slides. So in 1977, the largest consumer of energy was the US, with about 1/3 of the energy that was used in the world, being followed by the former Soviet Union. Then China, 5.8%, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, Canada, France, Italy, Poland, and the rest of the world. And today, we have seen a big change in terms that the largest energy consumer today is China, second place the US, in third place India. There is an interesting change in terms of the Russia, that today is the Russian Federation. So it's a different country, we can say, a different, but still is very important in consumption. So this has changed a lot in terms of who is consuming that energy. If we look oil, we have that the US is the largest consumer of oil, as it was in 1977. But today, we have that China is the second largest consumer of oil. A big change if you go back to 1977, where China only consumed 2.7% of the oil. So there are big changes where in the terms of oil consumption, we are seeing developing countries taking a much bigger share of oil consumption in the world. Oil production, I would say we have a much more diversified source of producers, but still you have that US, Saudi Arabia, former Soviet Union are the largest oil producers in the world. But today it appears Canada as an important producer, China, and many other countries, and Brazil will jump up here very, very soon with all its activities in shale oil, in pre-salt production. Okay? So natural gas, we have a similar story, where natural gas in 1977, we have the United States, Russia, Netherlands, were the consumers of natural gas. Today we have a much more diversified demand of natural gas, but much more bigger. Much more bigger demand for natural gas. The same we can say about of coal. Coal is the primary energy sources that has increased the most in the last 20, 30 years in terms of quantity. And most of the increase is explained basically for a large increase in coal consumption on the side of China, and also an increase in production. Renewables certainly still are very small percentage of the primary energy matrix, but they are catching up. And in terms of percentage of growth, is the energy source that is increasing more. Nuclear is something that is still going on. Nuclear is not dead, it's alive. We still have 440 nuclear power plants in operation, and there are 60 more in construction in the world, most in Asian countries. So regarding the question that was placed at the beginning, what about energy security? Well, energy security is about politics, sovereignty, political stability, democracy, and development. So when you look at the history of our association in terms, for example, of the conference, the list of conference, the national conference that we have organized, energy security has always been in the center of the debate, where energy security has a lot to do with access to energy sources, to the dependency on native or imported energy sources, the issues of resource depletion, energy efficiency and alternative energy sources, in terms of building the needed infrastructure, energy sufficiency, reliability of supply, and also reliability of demand. If you are a producer, well, you want a reliable demand. If you are a consumer, you want a reliable supply, and the resilience of the infrastructure to what is going on. And in terms of key non-energy resources challenges and threats that we see, well, the main challenges that at least I see in terms of the development of the energy sector is civil society. We are more educated, we are more connected. People has a lot more concern with the environment, with climate change, and they don't want any infrastructure near them, and sometimes anywhere. So civil society. Second is the challenge of the environment and the threat of climate change, where there's a lot of discussion. Most of the scientific community says this is true, and there are some skeptics that say that we don't know. The use of oil as a geopolitical weapon and supply manipulation, the dependency on energy dependency on conflict and political unstable regions, the issue of fossil fuels, bill collection, non-technical energy losses and sabotage are big issues in terms of energy security. For example, if you look here, the city of Rio de Janeiro, the Rio de Janeiro company has big problem trying to get to eliminate non-technical energy losses, and having in some region people been paying their electricity bill. So those are key issues in terms of the development of the sector. And well, as I mentioned, civil society, so I will skip all this. Something that is very important when you look in terms of energy security, well, there is a study by Sarah Peck that look at the chances of having conflicts in oil-rich region, and he found that those countries that are oil-rich has twice as more chances of having a civil war than those that don't have oil. So it's an issue that you have to take into account when you think of energy security, the issue of fossil fuels, sabotage of energy infrastructure, investor risk, that is something that was mentioned in the previous panel, that is very important. This is a map of country risk by Euler Hermes, as a company that estimates country risk. And this is they put different colors. Of course, green is better, red is pretty bad. And if you look at the world map, it's a complex map. It's a complex map. Chile was green a couple of years ago. Now we are yellow. I hope we don't get red. Always things can be worse. So we hope we don't get red. And in terms of, so if you look, for example, oil-rich countries, in general, are countries that has pretty bad risk in terms of high level of risk. In terms of the business environment, here we have the ranking of the Doing Business report for 2016 in terms where are the different OPEC countries in terms of their business environment. And here we have a group, I would say, up to Saudi Arabia, that in general are well placed. So you are 80 within the first 100. You are in the middle, top middle. That works okay. But when you start going down, things get pretty bad, and it's very risky to do business in those countries. So we have Venezuela almost at the end of the list. So those are issues in terms of the challenges for energy development. And final comment, energy security enables, so what is the antidote to the previous situation? Well, having an enabling business environment, that means the rule of law, strong institutions, and the absence of corruption. That's something that here in Latin America we suffer a lot. Well-functioning and competitive energy markets. I believe a lot of markets. As a comment, I can say, for example, in the case of Chile, we import 97% of the oil that we consume, almost all natural gas. We produce some electricity, and we have a private sector. The energy sector in Chile is private, and because it's private, it has been able to manage situations, for example, as the 2010 earthquake, where a huge amount of infrastructure was destroyed. And if that was a state company, we still are without light. But it was private companies, and in less than 6 months, everything was as it was before the earthquake. Okay, so because of the capacity of the private sector to mobilize resources, I think it was key. The issue of well-designed and resilient energy system, adequacy of infrastructure, diversification. Okay, so don't rely only on one fuel, the importance of energy efficiency, access to energy resources, and I will just point as an important issue that has been key in terms of improving energy security worldwide is the issue of innovation. Innovation in terms of enabling new energy sources, and also in terms of improving the access to additional energy resources. And when we talk about that, innovation, for example, in the LNG technology. This is a terminal that was built in Chile, in the north of Chile, in a record time, to substitute imported natural gas from Argentina. And at that moment, we were without gas, and in less than a year, it was built this port, and we rented 2 vessels that are identical, and one of the vessels was used as storage facility, because building an on-land storage in a country that has earthquakes takes a lot of time. So we have this being used as a storage facility, and this was going and coming from Trinidad, Tobago, and some other places, bringing the gas that was needed. So in 1 year, we were able to solve a big energy problem that we have in the north. Then innovation in the shale industry, certainly, and that has been key. if you look the statistic of the Energy Information Administration of peak oil production per well back in 2007, the best well in their best moment produced about 100 barrels. Today they are producing 1,000. So there has been a huge improvement in the technology, innovation there. Also, we have seen many presentations here of huge innovation improvements in deep water exploration. And of course, an important additional energy source is the exploitation of Canadian tar sands. That is also an innovation in terms of managing that tar sand and taking out the oil from that. Other technology changes that are very important, I would say the improvement of gas consumption by the cars. Here we have a curve that shows the reduction in terms of gas consumption of cars in the US. The decrease in the price of batteries are coming down very fast. So they will arrive to a moment that they can be a big game changer. And we have to think that about 50% of the oil that is produced goes into transportation. So if the batteries become good enough to drive for many miles, many kilometers, maybe everybody will run an electric vehicle, and oil will have a big problem in terms of finding a market. Also, new changes, distributed generation, where people can bring renewables and other things and not rely in the energy from conventional source power generation sources. And we have seen the success, for example, of PV installations in the US that have been increasing very fast. So as you see, energy is everywhere. Energy is everywhere, and it's so important that very often it gets the front page of main magazines as The Economist. The fallout, this was when we have the crisis, the Fukushima crisis. Clean energy and dirty secrets, drawing in oil. Here they were the end of the oil age. So we ran out of oil, or oil as the yesterday fuel, and we are seeing that oil production keeps going up. This was early in 2004. This early 2014 or middle 2014, when we have this interruption of shale oil that bring down the price. So shakes versus shale, green dreams, the burning question, the size of the day, that the price of oil was coming down very fast. The problem with the BP platform in the Gulf of Mexico, who's afraid of cheap oil, and the oil holics, referring to the US. So the way ahead, when energy security remains at the center of the energy agenda, is an issue that is coming on very, very frequent in our conference. We have to be aware that energy will be increasingly important. We are and will be more in the future. And that will imply that there is going to be an increasing friction in our relations, and we have to take care very well of that. There is going to be an increasing and strong competition to secure the control of key energy sources, energy resources. Renewables are and will play an increasing role in the energy matrix, which yet will be dominated by fossil fuels in the coming years. If you look at the International Energy Agency scenarios that they run every year, that are very optimistic in terms of the very slow growth rate in in energy consumption and are extremely optimistic in terms of the improvements on energy efficiency, something that we haven't seen in the past, and they say we are going to do a lot of energy efficiency. Well, but even though the International Energy Agency sees a huge participation of fossil fuels in the coming years, the main challenges, I would say, as an economist, well, the institutions and the business environment is key. If you want to bring investment, if you want to develop, you need good institutions, a good business environment, the civil society that wants nothing anywhere is an increasing problem, was mentioned in the previous presentation, the challenge to build hydropower plants, and certainly the environment and the threat of climate change that is a big issue. So that's what I have to mention regarding the importance of security in the context of what we do here in the International Association for Energy Economics. You are invited to participate, not only come to the conference, but join us in this volunteering work that we do here in the association. Okay, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ricardo.